Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
You won't believe what just surfaced about Bo Bichette's contract demands, and honestly, it explains everything. The number that's floating around right now is absolutely wild, and it's making waves not just in Toronto, but across the entire league. We're talking about a figure that's got fans, analysts, and front offices doing double takes. Plus, there's a Yankees connection that just emerged that could change everything. Stick around because this is getting crazy. So John Heyman just dropped a bomb about an hour ago, and the baseball world is losing its mind. Bo Bichette is reportedly seeking somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million. Yeah, you heard that right. $300 million. Now, when I first saw this number, I had to read it 3 times because it seemed so detached from reality. But this is coming from Heyman, who's one of the most plugged-in insiders in the game, so we can't just dismiss it. Think about what that number means for a second. The Blue Jays would absolutely be willing to spend $300 million, but probably on someone like Kyle Tucker. Tucker is the kind of superstar who commands that type of contract without question. He's younger, he's a lefty bat, his defense is elite, and he's been consistently excellent. Not saying Bo isn't a star, because he absolutely is, but Tucker's market value is clearly higher. The rumors around Tucker suggest he might land somewhere between $300 and $350 million. So for Bo to be asking for $300, that's approaching Tucker territory, and that's where things get complicated. Let's break down why this is such a head-scratcher. Last year, Bo put up fantastic offensive numbers. Nobody's disputing that. But his defense has become a legitimate concern. His base running has declined noticeably over the past couple seasons. He's coming off an injury that kept him out for a significant chunk of last year, and nobody really knows how that's going to impact his long-term projection. You're talking about paying $300 million for a guy who's listed as a shortstop, but realistically profiles better as a second baseman at this point. His outs above average ranked in the 1st percentile last year. 1st percentile. That means literally the worst in baseball. This revelation actually changes the entire narrative around the Blue Jays and their off-season approach. People have been criticizing the front office, saying they're being cheap, that they're not willing to spend to keep their homegrown stars. But if Bo's camp is legitimately asking for this kind of money, you can't really blame Toronto for pumping the brakes. This isn't about being cheap. This is about not massively overpaying for a player whose value doesn't match the asking price. Let's look at what the data actually says. SpotRack has Bo's calculated market value at 8 years, $186 million. That works out to about $23.3 million per year. So if he's asking for $300 million, even if we assume that's spread over 10 years to make the math easier, that's $30 million per year. He's asking for almost $7 million more per season than his projected market value. Over the life of a 10-year deal, that's $70 million more than what he should realistically expect to get. That's an enormous gap. When you start looking at comparable contracts, it gets even murkier. Dansby Swanson, Trevor Story, Trea Turner, Willy Adames, these are the guys in Bo's tier. Adames probably makes the most sense as a comparison, and he got 7 years, $182, which comes to $26 million annually. Trea Turner did get $300 million, but he was 29 when he signed, had accomplished significantly more, and is a way better defender. Turner's deal was 11 years, so the annual value wasn't quite as high, but still, he'd proven more over a longer period. Bo Bichette is undeniably one of the best pure hitters in baseball. He's accomplished things at shortstop that very few players in Blue Jays history have matched. But $300 million? That's a number that should be reserved for guys who are elite on both sides of the ball, who don't have major question marks about their defense or their injury history. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly kind of terrifying if you're a Blue Jays fan. Heyman also reported that the Yankees are starting to look more seriously at Bo Bichette. Apparently, their negotiations with Cody Bellinger have stalled. The Yankees and Bellinger's camp have exchanged multiple proposals, but haven't been able to close the gap. So now New York is pivoting, and Bo is on their radar. Imagine that nightmare scenario for a second. Bo Bichette in pinstripes, terrorizing the Blue Jays for the next decade in the AL East. That's the stuff that keeps Toronto fans up at night. But here's the thing. If the Yankees are willing to pay him $300 million, maybe that's actually okay. At least then, the Blue Jays can stand on solid ground and say they were never going to meet that number, and rightfully so. If Toronto lands Kyle Tucker and Bo ends up with the Yankees, that's not the worst outcome in the world. It's not ideal, obviously. The ideal scenario would be getting Tucker and having Bo sign somewhere random in the National League, far away from the AL East. But if the choice is between overpaying Bo by $70 million or letting him walk and getting Tucker instead, you take Tucker every single time. The Red Sox are also supposedly interested in Bo, so the AL East connection is very real. This division could look completely different next season depending on how these dominoes fall. But the asking price is the key detail here. It explains why Bo's market has developed so slowly. Teams aren't cheap, they're just not crazy. Speaking of things that actually happened instead of speculation, the Blue Jays finalized some arbitration deals today. Daulton Varsho avoided arbitration and signed for $10.75 million. That's $1 million more than what most projections had him at, which probably accounts for his elite defense. Sometimes the advanced metrics don't fully capture defensive value, and Varsho is legitimately one of the best defensive outfielders in the game. I fully expect the Blue Jays to lock up Varsho with an extension before he hits free agency after next season. He's exactly the kind of player you want to build around. Not flashy, but incredibly valuable in multiple ways. Ernie Clement also avoided arbitration at $4.6 million, and Tyler Heineman signed for $1.237 million. Avoiding arbitration is always a good sign. It shows the organization is willing to negotiate in good faith and find fair numbers without the adversarial process of actually going to a hearing. We've seen in the past how arbitration can sometimes create tension, even if it doesn't completely fracture relationships. Vlad and Bo both went through it before, and while things worked out fine, it's always better to avoid it when possible. For free agents looking at the Blue Jays, seeing the team pay Varsho more than projected and avoid arbitration across the board sends a positive message. It shows they value their players and aren't trying to nickel and dime everyone. But back to the main story, $300 million for Bo Bichette is the number that's going to dominate conversations for the next few weeks. If that's truly what he's seeking, his market is going to move very slowly. Teams will be interested, sure, but nobody's going to jump at that price without serious consideration. And if Kyle Tucker is only commanding slightly more than that, it really puts things in perspective about where Bo's value actually sits. The truth is finally out there about why these negotiations have taken so long. It's not the Blue Jays being difficult. It's not other teams being uninterested. It's the asking price. $300 million is a franchise-altering number, and you better be absolutely certain before you commit to it. For a player with Bo's defensive limitations and injury concerns, that's just not a smart investment, no matter how good his bat is.